Hi guys, welcome to another day at the boot camp. We've stopped off again with Anders from Battlefront, and this time we have Gianna in the studio.
Hi everybody.
And today we're going to have a look at the actual rulebook. So this is something that's very important for this game because it has condensed the rules a hell of a lot. So can you maybe tell us a little bit about what you've done?
What we've done with the rulebook, they have sort of put on a novel called Team Yankee as a miniature game. Very closely related to Flames of War, which of course Battlefront does also, but condensed to the essence of it basically. Instead of what we do on 200 pages in Flames of War, we do on 80 pages in Team Yankee. So it's very concise in its writing and very direct, and you state the rules straight on and don't go into long explanations of everything. But the rules are written there straight off and so on.
Okay, so that's good. So we're seeing a very lean game here that's going to be light and easy for people to pick up.
Yes.
Gianna, you spent a little time with the book.
Yes.
What have you seen so far?
It's very clear and concise. Also, everything is based on cards and on actual combat teams. So the amount of units are smaller and more fluid. And the rulebook closely follows the scenarios and storyline within the actual book of Team Yankee. So there are those different battles that you'll be able to fight and actually kind of relive and see how it really would have turned out if, how a player would do it versus what happens in the book.
Okay, very interesting. Well, we do have a copy of the book in front of us, so we're going to show off some of it. The first thing you get to see is this beautiful front cover, which it does just sum up the book that tanks will be blowing up everywhere.
And we also always go for that kind of cover in our games with action basically and full on.
And it basically describes it in just one page, and that is a fast, brutal game.
Yeah. So as soon as you open your book, you sort of start to get the opening sort of story from the Team Yankee novel, explaining how the world has changed and why Russia is now at war with the world, and how one small change can actually force everything to change. And some of the artwork in it is absolutely lovely. So if we just jump across to a couple of random pages, we have an expanded version of the front cover here, I think, which really shows people just blowing stuff up. Because from what I can tell, this game is absolutely killy as you like. You also get a few nice little story pieces that show some of the movements of Team Yankee from the novel. Yeah. And I believe you can play some of the scenarios from the book in this game. And then you've got a nice look at how some of the terrain should look, what sort of density you're going to look at. Because that's one thing I find. Every game has its own sort of terrain flavor that it needs. It's a certain density that if you don't have enough of it, or you have too much of it, suddenly the game will either bog down or it'll feel very open, very exposed. People aren't really going to be able to do what they need. So, Anders, how much terrain would you normally put down on a table if you were sitting down to play a game of Team Yankee?
Team Yankee, I would say, is all our games thrive on having quite a lot of terrain, I would say. It depends on where some tank players will say, no, but I don't want that because it might bog my army down and so on. But most of our games really thrive on having a lot of terrain and having a lot of fun with the terrain also. So it should be fairly terrain dense to get the most out of it.
Okay, cool. And Gianna, you've seen our gaming tables that we've set up. Our players are working like mad to get their armies together. What do you expect to see from the armies whenever they first get laid out?
It's going to be interesting to see how they decide to divide up their tank units, if they're going to go smaller teams or do one mass rush. I think the key to these battles, believe it or not, is going to be the air assets. How do they decide to play those aircraft? Are they going to play it fast and hard, or are they going to kind of strategize and have them kind of, come to the flank and attack on the sides, almost in a pincer movement, and then have the armor pull? It'll be very interesting to see, because originally I thought when everybody thought about Team Yankee, it was all going to be tanks. But really it takes in the whole modern battlefield, and a lot of it's fought in the air. So, and it's not going to be so much air-to-air combat as it is air-to-ground. So that'd be really interesting to see.
Well, it's what the game's now doing very, very well, because in World War II, you expect two massive armies to be facing off against each other. Modern combat evolved beyond just throwing waves of men at each other into something a little more tactical and surgical. So I suppose you probably should expect your aircraft are going to be zipping around looking, where can I nip off a tank here and there to weaken them enough that whenever our tanks do come together, I've got the upper hand. You know, same for infantry, because if you take out their transport ability with the M113s,
Yes.
you're going to suddenly be really bogged down with your infantry. They're going to be so much slower.
Yeah.
You know, they're going to have to dig in and just hold their ground as they may.
It's true.
The strength of the infantry is, I mean, they can go anywhere. So as soon as they dismount from their APCs, they can take terrain and go into the buildings, dense forests, and so on. That will always be the strength of the infantry, and dig in. But it's just the speed which you need to get anywhere with, which you do with the APCs. And that's the difference from Team Yankee era to World War II, when that comes to the forefront in World War II as it goes along. But it's that development that comes up to the front during the Cold War and subsequent modern warfare.
Yeah, well, it's like I said, each era of game you're going to play, you're going to have a different feel to the game. If we were playing Ancients, something along those lines, you're expecting just ranks of men massing to crash together. Black Powder, Napoleonics era, again, you're expecting ranks, but then it's volley fire at each other.
Cavalry.
And artillery, Then we get to the modern era, which I always consider the modern era of warfare begins at World War I. Because that's an era we first start to see major technological advancements to actually make warfare completely different. And it did take countries a long, long time to actually catch up with what was happening with technology. But moving on, we've got a couple more pages of the book here. So this one is actually showing how some of your line of sight is going to work here.
Yeah.
And I do love some of the tables you guys put together, because you have the cornfields, but you've actually cut it so that there are segments that can pull out and you can actually have your tanks and stuff hulled down in there. Yeah. How important is your line of sight in this game, and how does line of sight operate in this game?
Line of sight is always important in our games, and Team Yankee is no exception there. Line of sight has been very much written in a concise manner compared to what we've seen before, in that as long, for example, if you're in area terrain, it's to say a woods, as long as you're 5 centimeters or 2 inches from the edge, you can actually see out with concealment and be seen. And that's the rule, that's it. And that has been loads of years of problems in, for example, Flames of War, where should you be sitting in that? And that's things like that are taken care of in Team Yankee in a very, very nice way, I would say.
Very, very cool. Right, well, let's have another flick through the book, see if we can find...
I have to say, I do like the pictures. It lays out everything beautifully.
Yeah, it's a very clean book for actually figuring out what's going on. And then you have all the wonderful little diagrams and stuff to actually show you what would happen in, well, what's this? Charge into contact. So you actually do get melee in this. Is it as killy as it was in Flames of War, World War II?
It is, yeah. I mean, once you go in, it's straight off killing, basically. You roll your value to hit, basically, in the close combat, and if it's infantry, it goes away. If it's a tank, you roll against the top arm and so on. But it's brutal and lethal, as it should be, and again, it's very straightforward. If you are within 4 inches and can contact anything, you can get into combat, basically.
Yeah.
So that's it.
What about yourself, Gianna? What would you rather have? Shooting at long range, or do you want to get in close and dirty with a combat knife?
Well, speaking from... No soldier wants to go hand to hand, especially in the modern age.
Yeah.
Everything can be done from such a great distance. In war games, it's fun. In reality, not so much. So, I mean, it's always great to have two armies clash, on the battle line, hand to hand, getting your little soldiers in there and going at it. It adds that next level of excitement. And that's what I think this game does really well, is you have such tiered levels. You have your infantry to your armor, to your artillery, to your air assets. And you really have to have a good strategy to have all those going together. Otherwise, your strategy might not be the best on the table. I think a good player in this game is going to be the one that is able to strategize and use those tools to their best ability. You'll get somebody who's a tank jockey and all they think is tank, tank, tank. John. And then you'll have your anti-tank, and you'll have, believe it or not, even your infantry with the dragons or RPGs that if you maneuver them properly, you can sit there and take out some of the armor from the sides. So
No, it's about using all your assets in the correct way for maximizing their use on the battlefield, and that's what works.
Yes.
So basically, what you're hoping for is waiting for the moment when your opponent makes a careless move with, say this weekend, someone makes a careless move with the Hinds.
Yes.
Suddenly, I've got 2 of them in the open. I'm not going to leave them there.
No.
Target of opportunity. Let's go for it.
Yes.
But the other thing that this game does really well, it brings so much of the equipment from that era. Because here we have my personal favorite, the A10 Warthog.
Oh, yeah.
Which has a big, massive, gigantic, huge, and ridiculous minigun.
Yes.
Built. Well, actually, the plane is built around the gun
It is.
more than anything.
Truly, that's true.
And I think if I remember right, by the time the bullets have hit the ground, this thing's firing so fast, it takes a second for the sound to actually catch up.
Yes, it does, and it has that distinctive burp sound. And just to make it so people can realize the power of this thing, though that minigun can put a round in every square inch of a football field in one pass. So, I mean, anything within that line of sight should be hit.
So, beautiful delete button.
Oh, it's just a nasty, nasty weapon.
Now, at this time, we were also seeing the Cobras start to come in for the first time. Now, this was something that had been done in Vietnam, I was being told earlier.
Yeah.
And that they had finally decided, right, we need to actually design a helicopter which is going to do this job for us, which gives us the Cobra attack helicopter. These things are scary, and they always have that classic paint job of the shark's face on the front of it. Have you any experience with these, Gianna?
Well, the Cobra itself was developed late Vietnam to replace the Huey gunships because Huey gunships were too slow and too big. They wanted something faster and slick. So they came up with the AH-1, the Cobra. And when we learned or decided that the big Soviet armor push was going to be the thing for us, they armed it with the improved TOW missile. And then later, ideally, they said the Hellfire, but honestly, it was the TOW missile. So they're fast. They have a very slick profile. So they were a dedicated weapons platform versus the Huey with the miniguns and rockets.
I see. I see. The other thing we get in the book is actually a nice little painting guide for some of the forces, because some people will look at it and go, what the hell kind of camouflage would they have used during this era? You know, what kind of terrain would they have been going through? So you do get a nice little painting guide for everybody. So your infantry, your tanks, your air support. Oh, I actually really like this on the Hinds. It's a very nice scheme. But the other thing that makes this game a lot better, in my opinion, stat cards.
Yes.
It's the one thing I think every single game in the world needs, because it means I don't have to refer to that book. I can have this book, I can read through this book, I can enjoy it, I can love the fluff, the story, the history behind it. Whenever it gets down to brass tacks on the tabletop, I want to have a deck that I can quite happily just lay out on the table in front of me going, okay, I've got that, I've got that, I've got that, okay, I only need to look down at these 3 cards and I know exactly what I'm playing with. Now, how do the stat cards actually work? So we've got an M1 Abrams here. Now, I'm not sure if you can see this too well on the camera, but we'll try and go through it for you. So I'll pass this to you, Anders, and if you take us through exactly how the stat card works. What's the anatomy of a stat card? Well,
the anatomy of a stat card is basically tells you what it is. So it says M1 Abrams. It's part of a tank platoon and from Team Yankee, basically. So you know all that straight off. Then it tells you it's a tank unit. So takes care of what it is in the book, basically. And a couple of other special rules, like it's have Shobam armor, which is an anti-heat kind of specialized armor that is. In the game, it gives you a better side armor against heat weapons. Thermal imaging, we can see well in the night and darkness through smoke, stuff like that. So that gives a few of the special rules there as well. Then you go through a quite central part of it. It's what you need to roll against in different situations.
Right, so on this stat card, that would be here where we're seeing the little bit of red here, and then the couple of stats beneath it, yes?
Yes, exactly. So courage, skill, morale, assault, remount, counterattack.
Yeah, and it's all just rolling on a d6. You need
it's
that
d6, yeah. So whenever you need to roll, for example, a skill test, you need to roll 4+. And it says it's right here. In assault, you need to hit on a 4+.
Yeah, so it's really clean. You know, there is nothing confusing about this. You know, I remember in Flames of War, I used to look at it and go, okay, so I'm rolling to hit, then to penetrate, and then to see if I bailed. And it would just be going, okay, Not sure where I'm going here.
Yeah, you had to think a little bit differently there because you have the combination. For example, confident veteran is 4+ to roll your morale, and then you're hit on 4+. Here it says what you need. So morale is 4+, and you have it stated right here.
Yeah.
Is hit on a 4+. It's sort of stated, so you don't need to translate that for yourself in whatever it is.
Yeah, and
that
the
helps
thing
new
is,
players, of
you
course.
have the full weapons profile of what this thing is armed with. And
You
the bottom
do,
of the card,
yes.
so it's no more flicking through charts going, does it have that? Yes. You just go, oh, right, there's my main gun, there's my secondary armaments, I'm laughing. And then on the back, we have a quick look, you can see there's a few more little bits here. We have units in formation, armored combat team HQ, and the special rules down the side. So there's not even any hunting for your special rules. You'll be able to find everything incredibly quickly. So that should speed up play and make the game a lot more fun.
It's got your point cost down there, so you can build your teams.
Exactly.
It has also the different movement stats on the front there, what tactical move. There is a lot of different movements you can do in a way, but it's very simple how it actually works. It's just, and it's also just given straight onto the card.
That's
you can follow
absolutely
it there.
perfect. Right, well, I think we'll move on here because we do have rabid gamers outside the door waiting to play, to be the first in the world to actually play the game. We actually got incredibly lucky that we're actually doing this as now a preview event. Now, one thing I want everybody to remember, we do have a competition running this weekend. So, for your chance to win a 2-player starter bundle for Team Yankee, comment on this post, any of the other posts through the weekend, any of the posts on Facebook or YouTube, for your chance to win. What you're going to get is 2 rulebooks, Bannon's Boys and Pachenkov's Bears to get yourself started into Team Yankee. So, thank you very much for joining me.
Thank you.
Hope we have a wonderful day's gaming. Guys, we'll see you in another video.